up? I'm Radio Natalie. It's that 206 sound. Thanks for being here. Fun fact about me is I love Latin and reggaeton music. Bad Bunny, Selena Quintanilla, Los Gemelos de Sinaola, J Balvin, Maluma. If it's out there, I love it. And it's funny because people don't realize why I do because I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I truly believe that music holds no barriers. I felt that J Balvin said it best during his Lollapalooza show many years ago, where, a lot of people that came to his show or his set didn't know Spanish, but they were just dancing to it because they loved it so much. And I truly believe, language or not, if you love good music and you love any kind of music, you'll love music despite the language barrier. And that's why I have this guest here today. Via his website, he's an urban artist, a singer, a rapper, songwriter, and producer. He's here today in the studio, and I'm really excited to highlight his story for you. So here is Riio.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I go by the name of Riio, based out of Tacoma. I represent the whole Washington area really with my music. So I'm excited to be here. Appreciate the opportunity, and I'm excited to share a little bit of my story.
Yeah, you kind of travel all over the state to play music.
I have. Like last year, I was definitely all over the place. I went to Boise. I went to Spokane. California. I was all over the place, just trying to get my music to be heard.
That's impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is actually our first time meeting. We have tried to meet several times. My schedule is just crazy. I was actually going to meet you at Fremont Friday a couple weeks ago, but it says here I got COVID. I didn't test if I did. I just was really sick, so it's like I probably shouldn't go. Don't really care if it's COVID anymore because I'm vaccinated. But we're here, and it's so nice to meet you. Awesome. So let's just get into it. So you are from Seattle?
I'm from Tacoma.
You're from Tacoma?
Yeah, so I'm from the Tacoma area. Yeah, grew up in Tacoma, lived there most of my life. We originally came from California. We lived about 5 or 6 years in California, and then my parents decided to move down to Tacoma, and that's kind of where we resided.
Yeah. What part of Cali?
Burbank,
okay.
East Los Angeles.
Yeah.
My dad was big into the music scene, and he was trying to find his way into music, and he found Washington, and then we kind of just settled here.
That's nice. Do you have any memories of living in California, or were you too young to remember?
I do. All my memories of California is me fighting usually in the neighborhoods and just getting into trouble. I think that's kind of the reason why my dad wanted to move us out of California.
Get out of the trouble, for sure.
Yeah.
So what was growing up in Tacoma like for you?
It was cool. Most of my childhood friends are in the Tacoma area still. I went to different elementary schools. I think at one point I was at like 5 or 6 different elementary schools just because we constantly were moving and
around Tacoma.
Yeah. I went to Baker Middle School. Shout out to all my Bulldogs out there.
Hey.
I graduated from Stadium High School as well over in the north end area of Tacoma.
That's a nice school.
So I mean, my childhood is like it was great. I mean, I enjoyed a lot of it. I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs, but I mean, Tacoma is kind of what I represent.
Yeah, Tacoma is a sweet spot for sure. It's nice because it's so close to the city, but also far enough away where if you want to get away,
it's
nice.
Right. That's right.
So I was doing obviously a lot of research for this, and your family plays music or played music.
Right.
And just from one of your interviews, you said that your dad would have the key to the garage, would lock you and your siblings in there, kind of almost like the Jackson 5 almost, and just kind of force you guys to play music. So what was that kind of like? My memories of my dad are like it's kind of like a love and hate kind of relationship with him because like growing up, our childhood, like I just remember from like 9 years old to about 13, like he literally would lock us in the garage every single day coming home from school until we learned how to play an instrument, until we knew how to sing a song, and then eventually we got into he put us in church choir. We were in the choir, we were part of the band. My 2 brothers, Gio and Caesar, like they play instruments as well. My younger brother, he does a little bit of singing, but I was mostly the singer. I played drums with my dad as well. And then once we got pretty good, after several years of him just locking us up for hours, so my dad had a band. Like that's kind of how we all got into music. Like all my uncles are musicians.
and they all play guitar, bass, they all sing. So growing up in our family, like if you didn't sing, you were like the odd child. Like something's wrong with you. Like how come he's
Yeah.
not singing?
Yeah.
So at parties and kids parties or whatever, everybody, it used to always turn out to like a singing battle kind of thing. Everybody was singing, my
Really?
cousins, and that's kind of how we all got into it. It's like we were kind of like just born into it, whether we wanted to
Yeah.
or not. My cousins, my brothers, myself, and everyone in our family. And my dad had a band in the early '90s trying to establish himself.
Oh,
And,
cool.
and so when he decided to move to Washington and bring us to Tacoma, he was going through a tough patch of like trying to find musicians and
Yeah.
my uncle's not like just tension sometimes with family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like in the late 2000s, everybody left him, and he wanted to continue his music career. So the only way he could do that is by putting his kids into music. So he
Yeah.
kind of forced us, and after like about 2 years, we started like really getting the hang of it, and he could tell like, oh, these kids are going to be really good
Yeah.
at these instruments. So we started performing all over Washington, like everywhere you can think of. Like my dad's band with us in it, we were everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was a pretty cool experience to growing up to see it, but at the same time now, like growing up, I was like, I used to hate my dad for it, but now that I'm older, I was just like, I kind of appreciate what he did for me in a weird way.
Yeah. Did you guys teach yourself how to play these instruments, or was he there to help
He
you?
was there to help, so he
Okay.
would teach us like, hey, so like so just to hear like in my head, I was like, so what he would do is like we would come home from school. He was like, hey, this is the song I want you guys to learn. And he would tell my brother how to play it on the keyboards, and that was
Mm.
his assignment for the entire day. And then if I was
Wow.
on the drums, he's like, "This is how you have to play. This is the tempo, and this is how you sing it. And then you also have to keep the beat too going."
Yeah.
So, and then he would literally leave us there for hours. Like my mom had no say. And then after like 4 or 5 hours, he would come back home and he's like, "All right, how you guys doing? How's the song
Yeah.
sound?" And that's kind of how he got us into it, really.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was.
Like in a good and like crazy way too. Do you hold like any resentment towards him for that?
I'm growing up, yes, a
Yeah.
lot of it. Like it kind of messed me up a lot, and
Hmm.
but as I got older and I started understanding life, and I learned about like discipline and just structure, just as a man in general. I don't. I don't fault him. That like I think understanding his childhood made me realize the person that he was.
Yeah.
So now I'm just like I'm actually able to be like, okay, I understand it might have not been the best way to teach your kids how to do something, but I don't fault him at all. It's like I mean it
Yeah.
is what it is. That was his only way of teaching us. So
Yeah, and I feel like as you get older, I've even been going through this where I feel like you learn that your parents aren't perfect and they're really just doing the best that they can with the cards that they're dealt with.
yeah, it's like nobody. There's no guidebook to like be like, hey, this is how you're
Yeah.
supposed to be as a parent. It's just like everybody does it different. So
Yeah, if there was, it'd be a bestseller for sure. Like, oh my gosh. So, do you feel that success comes with sacrifice?
absolutely, 100%, 100%. It comes with a lot of sacrifice, and it comes with a lot of like patience as well. Because I
Yeah.
think in music, the one thing I've learned just growing up, seeing my uncles do what they were doing, seeing my dad do what he was doing, and now me trying to do what I'm trying to accomplish. It's a game of resistance. Like music is there's so many downs in music, that there's so many things that will try and break you, that you have to be mentally strong to be like, hey, there's a vision that I have, and I just got to keep on going.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's funny because when I was researching you and I heard how at young of an age you were really taught to really learn music and perform, it makes sense with the product today. I mean, I don't really say this to a lot of people, but I'm
Yeah.
going to say this to you. I mean, some of your music is like the best music I've heard coming out of Seattle.
Yeah,
You
that
and
means
like
a
your
lot.
friends that you like, you make music with like Doble D.
Yeah.
We'll talk about him. He's
Okay.
super cool. But yeah, I just when I was learning more about you, I was like, that makes sense because you're like insanely talented.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it just shows in the product and in the music.
Mhm.
So you do play multiple instruments? Or is it the
I
drums?
nibble, like I'm really good at playing drums. I nibble into like playing a little bit of keyboard and a little bit of
Yeah.
guitar. But yeah, my good instrument to play is drums. I can play drums and I can sing all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could tell like that you had to have done some choir.
Yeah.
I feel like you can kind of hear someone when they sing and you're like, they definitely have like done this at a young age or were like in choir. So that makes sense.
That's catching a backhand early on when I was a kid with my
Oh,
dad.
yeah. Oh no. Yeah, like just you don't want to mess up, so you want to like make sure you do it perfectly.
Yeah, you got to do it right.
Very similar to kind of what you said in your words, the Jackson 5, which I am sorry that was the case.
Yeah.
But let's get into your music inspirations. I kind of
Okay.
want to hear what inspires you, both Latin and English.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to start with the Latin side? You want me to
Yeah,
go
let's do a Latin side.
So I listen to I actually don't listen to too much reggaeton. Like
Okay.
as an artist, as a reggaeton artist, I try not to listen to too much of it because I don't want to get. I just don't want to say the same thing everybody else is
You
saying.
don't want to sound the same.
Exactly.
too.
So the only guy that I really listen to as far as reggaeton is Fade. Like he's
love
my
Fade.
all time.
He's amazing.
He's my favorite. Like he's
Yeah.
hands down my favorite. I can play a Fade song at any time of day and I'm locked in.
It's so good.
I'm locked in. Yeah,
That's perfect.
If I'm not listening to my own music, I'm listening to Fade.
Yeah.
Like, and that's
Oh.
it. It's like everyone else, like I'm better than y'all. That's my mentality.
Yeah.
You know,
well, he's
that-
on everything too.
He-
Like he
everywhere.
really any artist in that scene, it's like he's
Everywhere.
affiliated with.
Like he's
yeah.
that good. So yeah. As far as reggaeton, them, and then I listen to a lot of old school stuff like Joan Sebastian. I don't know if you've ever heard Joan Sebastian's music. He's a poet to me. It's like he's
Yeah.
amazing. Vicente Fernandez. I listen to a lot of cumbia like bands,
Yes.
Ángeles Azules, La Sonora Dinamita. So I grew up on that old school kind of music. So I
Yeah.
still keep it with me because it just makes me feel good.
It does. And I hear it in like a lot of your songs too. And honestly, that music, like I've been getting into this Latin scene the last like 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
And some of the music is just so beautiful and powerful. I just like start to cry. And I don't even really, I don't know what they're saying. I know a little bit, but it's just you could hear like the emotion in their words and then just the way that they play. It's very powerful.
I think that's what it like. Spanish music is so emotional.
It
Like it's
is.
so emotional, and it feels like it's talking to you directly.
Yeah.
That's probably why you feel the way you feel.
Yeah.
As far as those artists, and then English artists, I listen to a whole different style of music. Like it just depends on my mood. I can go from
For
hip hop. I can go from like alternative. I can nibble into a little bit of rock from time to time.
Yeah.
I listen to country. I just kind of got into more country music,
Yeah.
and it reminds me a lot of Spanish music of the artist I was talking about, Joan Sebastian. So like now that I'm a little older and I can actually appreciate country music now, it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, the lyrics hit.
They do. They're
They-
they're very, very powerful
Yeah.
and deep.
And I feel like country music's kind of changing a little bit now too. It's like it sounds more pop to me nowadays.
Yeah.
Where I'm enjoying it. I know a lot of like true country artists or country fans don't really like it.
Yeah.
Music evolves. Like I think it's just the evolution of where we're kind of
Yeah.
headed as far as music goes.
That's a really good way of putting it. Because I agree. I don't think it's bad at all, but I know super like country people are like, we don't like this.
Yeah.
We don't like listening to
Yep.
this.
Yep.
But I think it's great. So you, on your website, you talked about how you have a hard time or had, I don't know if this is now, but like you
Yeah.
had a hard time kind of expressing your emotions and you would do that through writing.
Yeah.
So what, like when did you start writing music?
I started like really, really writing music about 4 years ago.
Okay.
That's kind of where like I got serious about like, all right, let me try to put together a song structure, like from like start to finish, like intro, verse, chorus,
Yeah.
verse, and so forth, right? Because anybody can write a song, but does it make sense structurally, like as a song? That's why a lot of songs are hits because they're writing it correctly.
Yes.
And
There's a formula.
there's a formula to it. It's a science, and I had a hard time. I put that in my website. It's a quote from me because I had a lot like growing up. My childhood is very like I said. It's like a love and hate with my dad, and I've learned to like finally let it go after all these
Yeah.
years. That I had a lot of issues with just expressing who I was and how I felt in certain situations, even with friends and family members. it really messed me up growing up. So as I got older, I think getting back into music really just opened up a door for me where like, hey, I can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And this is my outlet kind of way. Like music is my way of showing the world like, hey, this is who I am. I'm a human. I have emotions and I want to give them to you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So becoming Riio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't. Is that your real name?
So my real name is Mario. Yeah. So
everybody, we heard it here first.
Yeah. So it's just, you know, people call me Riio. So I just kind of was like, you know, Riio hits. Like I think it sticks with as an artist. It just, and then we just kind of like added an extra I to make it more artistic.
Mario.
Yeah.
I'm getting it now.
You know, you're getting it now.
Yeah. How did you build this? I don't know if you would consider this like a persona, but how did you build your Riio brand? Like becoming Riio? Becoming
Riio is kind of like, it's kind of easy for me because the goofball that people see on stage, that's who I am outside of like, like if you don't know me, I'm always cracking jokes. Like I'm dancing all the time, and it's kind of part of me. It's not really so much as like, oh, I hear a lot of people, it's like, oh, it's my alter ego. It's really not like that's who I am. Like I'm just showing it as an artist.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know Mario, they get to see Riio, and that's kind of like another side of like who I am as well. So, I think I might have got lost in your question there. Like, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you kind of answered it. Like just like becoming Riio.
Right.
You just it's so you pretty much it's just like an extension of who you are.
Absolutely. I think it's just an extension, and it's an outlet of me expressing like, hey, this is who I am, and I'm just sharing music through a different name. That's kind of how I look at it.
It's very genuine for sure, because I do hear that. Like I know Beyonce, her alter ego is Sasha Fierce.
Yeah,
and she's like, it's completely opposite of what I am, which I think a lot of people see it as like, as a former theater kid, you become this character.
Yeah.
But with you, this is just who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like take me as I am.
The one thing I've had a hard time with, like especially like with my mom and stuff, like my family members, I'll write certain lyrics. And they'll be like, you said that, and I was like, you gotta. I was like, I've talked to them. I was like, you gotta understand, I'm not writing music for you. Like I've told my mom
like
that
the
at times.
Stuff.
I was like, you gotta understand. I was like, this is for an audience.
Yeah.
So that's been like the way of like, I think it's been harder for them to be like, he thinks that sometimes. It's like, it's music. Anything goes.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
I can express it however I want.
Yeah. Some people just, if they're not in it, they just want to understand. They're like, is this real? It's like, it's a song.
It's
like,
a
don't
song.
dig too deep into it.
Exactly.
So speaking of that, let's get into the music. So just from the videos I've seen, you do have like a backing like band. Technically, for like a lot of your performances. Is this your family, or is this like people that you've found over the years?
People I've worked with through the years. Like like a lot of my musicians. Shout out to Victor, Compa Cruz, my brother Gio. A lot of the guys that have been there with me. They help me just do live shows. Like I want to create an experience for people. Like if they're gonna come see me. For me, my mentality is like, because I grew up in the music scene and just seeing what it was, it's like it has to be like, you have to capture the audience. Like you have to like I want if somebody's gonna buy a ticket to go see me, I want them to see me live. Like I don't want no edits on my voice. Like this is pure, this is who you're gonna get. And the Spotify or Apple Music version, that's the highest quality it can possibly get. Yeah. But live, I want them to hear everything. Like I wanted to hear it raw. Yeah. Because I think that's the coolest thing. Like how does that artist sound live? Like instead of like all the auto tune and all that stuff stripped away, how do you actually sound?
Yeah, and you sound great live.
Thank
I have
you.
yet to see a live show, but again, from the videos,
yeah.
it really just translates over where you're just purely talented. There's
Thank
no
you.
like edits you need.
Thank you.
Speaking of Spotify, your earliest release date, I'm a Spotify user, I'm not an Apple Music user, sorry. But your earliest release date just for any music was 2021. But when did you start like recording music?
So like a year before that. So I think around 2019, that's really when I got serious about being a artist. And it all came through like this weird way through one of my friends. He was working with some artists and producers out in California. And he was like, hey, he came over to my house one day and he was like, Riio, I'm working with Anuel and Ozuna's
What?
producer, and
Stop.
and and I'm trying to make these reggaeton beats. Can you help me with some ideas? And maybe throw a couple lyrics here and there. I was like, I just want to kind of pitch some of my beats to them. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
perfect, let's make it happen. After like a month, he sends beats over to me, and I'm just kind of going through life, not really like listening to it. And then one day I'm bored and I open up the file and I start listening to the beats, and it just sparked something in me.
Mm,
After being away from music for so long, I listened to it and I was just like, man, this is, and that was right around the time like reggaeton was like hit, like Devil Dead
yeah.
was out, and
It
it
started to
it,
really.
it was like just popping off everywhere. And I was listening to these beats and I was like, man, I think I can write some lyrics to it. And then I wrote Negativa just kind of like as a rough draft. I don't know if you've heard that song.
Yeah, I've heard all your songs. Yeah.
Thank you. So I kind of wrote that as a rough draft, and I sent it to him, and then he follows up with me like 2 days later. He's like, Rio, he's like, this is actually pretty good, bro. He's like, you ever thought about making music? I was like, I have. I was like, I used to do it a long time ago. I don't know if I have the time for it or whatever. And
Hmm.
he's like, well, I think you got something here. Like, if you really want to pursue it, it's definitely. And I was like, I work with artists, and it's definitely a possibility for you to make this happen.
Wow.
And I kind of just left it at that. And then I finished. He sent me like 5 or 6 beats, and I ended up finishing all those. I wrote songs for all those beats,
Wow.
and that kind of just like got me going. I was like, this is kind of what this is. In a weird way, music came back to me. I wasn't looking for it, so
It
I
happened in
kind
my
of
life.
knew it was a sign for me to do it. I was like, this is weird, but I'm not questioning it. I'm gonna go do it.
Yeah. I've had that in my life too, especially where I think growing up, like always wanted to be famous, always wanted to do stuff like this, but your parents try to humble you a bit and
Hmm.
kind of make it realistic where it's like, well, what about being like a nurse? What about being like,
Yeah,
just, a normal job, which we do need. And I think the more I pushed the idea of being in music away, the more it completely came back to me. And I
that's
think
crazy.
sometimes your purpose in life, it's going to find a way to come back to you
Yeah.
regardless. And I think it seems like that was the same for you.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. For sure. It's like I left music like for like a good 10, 10, 12 years.
Yeah,
Like
it
I didn't
seems like there was like a long
there was a big
period.
gap. Yeah, there was a big gap, and I was just like I was okay with it. I was like, you know what, if this doesn't ever come back to me, then it's just not meant to be. But like I said, it just in a weird way the world works like that, and it just happened to be so. And I'm here today, and I'm going 100 miles an hour every single day. And
Yeah.
it's just like I want to make this happen.
Yeah, good for you. That's great that you have like an outlet to do that, you
Thank you.
know? So, when I listen to your music, you have explored a lot of different sounds. I hear a lot of trap, hip hop, reggaeton,
Mhm.
but also you have some classic stuff
I
like
do.
in Tu Bandido, Tu Dela, and MX Todo.
Uh
I
huh.
think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I hear a lot of that classic stuff,
Yeah.
like kind of what you were saying earlier, and
Yeah.
it really shows in your music. So when you are recording those, like more the classic side of music, do
Yeah.
you have like your band with you to like record stuff?
So a lot of that stuff, it's already like, so by the time I get to the lyrics, yeah, it's like most of the instruments are kind of recorded before that. The cumbias, I think with the last cumbia that I worked with the producer out of California. He kind of had all the instruments and everything ready to go, and he kind of sent me the beats like, hey, I think this is a good song for you, listening to your catalog. That's kind of how like every song is kind of formulated entirely different,
Yeah, I
especially
noticed that.
especially for like the like true like corridos, like me, you mentioned Mi Todo. I had a trombone player come and do a session, and he laid down the whole
Wow.
trombone. I had somebody else do I don't know what it's called in English, but we call them charchetas. It's like a weird ear, and it's like a small version of a trombone.
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure what it's
I
called.
can find it and put a picture on the
Yeah,
screen.
I'm sure you can find it, but I had somebody else do that at a different recording studio, and then they sent me everything, and then my engineer and we kind of just like mesh everything together.
What's it like seeing that come to life?
It's incredible. I feel like
Yeah.
it's just like when you're in your craft, like you realize like you're not really working, like you're really just creating like this like project and this magic. And then for me, working with my engineer, I've been working with him for 4 years. It's like it's a marriage.
Oh
It,
yeah.
it really is, because I don't work with anyone else. There can be, you can tell me, hey, this guy's amazing. He's a great engineer. I only work with this guy because he knows my sound. We've come up together. Like my singing has come along with him. Like we're like, sometimes I'm thinking something in my head and he's like, Rio, you should do this. And I'm just like, I was just thinking that. What the heck? So we just bounce ideas back and forth. And then for this project, it was amazing, like working with him. Like we were in the studio for hours, just bouncing. Like sometimes we'll bump heads from time to time, but nothing crazy. But because he has a different vision for the song and I have a different vision. But as far as like ideas and how we're able to put together songs, it's just like it just works. Like shout out to my guy Kyle too, Cold Clock Productions in Tacoma. I think he's one of the finest engineers in the Pacific Northwest, honestly. And I don't say that just because I work with him. He has a lot of skills in like vocals. He has a lot of like skills in mastering and mixing. And he's a great guy to work with, honestly.
Yeah. I've noticed that with a lot of artists, just talking to them through my episodes, that they really value connection with the people that they're working with and trust. And I think that's really important to have a really great duo creating amazing things, is having that trust and, friendship, I would say. Yeah.
You have to. I feel like, especially in the studio, like if you don't align with the vision that the engineer's doing as far as mixing, then your song, you might not like your song. Or like you might be altering, adding effects and plugins to a certain song that you don't like, and the engineer, sometimes I've seen engineers just kind of run with things and artists don't say nothing. Because it's like, he knows what he's doing. Ultimately, it's your song. Like, it's your vision for what you want to create. So you have to have a lot of input in terms of like actually creating the project.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I feel like every Latin artist gets asked this question from someone that is American. Do you think you'll ever dabble in English music?
I've been doing it more and more, especially in my album. Like I think I have a couple verses where you're right. Because I get asked that all the time. Like, you need to do English music. I don't think I'll ever do like a full on English song, because that's in my core essence. I don't think that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely sprinkle a verse or a chorus where I'm singing in English or just rapping kind of in English or so forth. But I've thought about it. For me, it's more so it's like, I think it's sometimes like you're your own worst self-critic. Yeah. I'll listen to myself and I'll be like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. So I was just like, I'm the Spanish guy. Like, I'll stay in my lane. I think I like where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Well, you're doing it great.
Thank you.
The first song I ever heard from you, I was on Instagram, and in Seattle, there is like a lot of hip hop, rap music, and a lot of like indie rock music. Mm-hmm. But for me, I felt like I was kind of in my own corner, really enjoying Latin and reggaeton music, and a lot of my friends don't. So I would go to these shows like all by myself. Like I went to see Maluma by myself. I went to see Bad Bunny by myself. Like I just love it so much. But it's hard to find like that group, especially in Washington. I feel like that do that. And I remember the first song I heard from you was Lost Babies, and I was like, finally, I struck gold. It's about time.
Like somebody's out here doing it.
Yeah,
right?
I'm like, because I didn't know. I've just been like, trying to look around, and I was like, I finally found like the group. And I noticed kind of what we were saying earlier, reggaeton music really blew up in 2022, 2023 with Bad Bunny's Un Verano Sin Ti.
Yeah.
And,
definitely.
I feel like that just really exploded. And it was like the #1 album on Spotify above Beyonce, like stuff that has never been done before. Mm-hmm. And I want to know, do you think in Seattle there's a lack of Latin representation?
100%. I think 100%. I mean, one, I feel like with Seattle, like you mentioned, there's a lot of, I think the scene here is more hip hop, more indie, like rock bands and so forth. But there are guys out there trying to push their music. I think what we need to do is, as Latin artists, is be more consistent as possible. And I think a lot of artists get let down because sometimes the door's not open for you because, like you said, you don't know if these artists exist. Yeah. And a lot of like venues, they're like, I don't know about this music. I've never heard it before.
So stupid.
I think so too. I think so too. But because I've been the style of my style of personality is like, hey, I'm breaking through that door. Like, it doesn't matter if I get no's all the time. It doesn't matter. Somebody's gonna give me a yes, and that's all I need. Sometimes I just need one opportunity to play my music, and I know I'm gonna capture audience. I know I'm gonna change the perspective of if somebody's like, I don't know about this Latin music. My goal is to change that
Yeah.
perspective here in Seattle, because there's a lot of good music art out there, a lot of it, but I feel like sometimes it's gate kept
Yeah.
in a way. It's
Good
weird.
word. I noticed that too. But I feel like what was really cool is Fremont Friday did a Puro Raza y Cultura Mexicana,
Yeah.
which was super cool. What was that like for you?
I mean, shout out to the Mediums guys, because
Yeah.
they do a lot for the Mexican and Latin community. So just me establishing my a connection with them and a friendship with them has given me opportunities to do like a Fremont Friday show where they were able to
Yeah.
hear my music and they liked it, and then they wanted to put me on the show. So I think just showing Seattle the culture of like what Mexican music is, and there's different styles of Mexican music.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's not just corridos, there's not just cumbias, like there's everything. It's just like within Mexican culture comes like tacos, aguas frescas, lowriders, like I mean, you name it.
Yeah,
It's like
it
there's
was
it's
so
you know, it's
cool.
like it's an experience, and I think people like are becoming more accepting of that these days.
Yeah.
It's like whereas like cultures, everybody's so unique and so cool in their own way. It's just like you just got to be open to accept it and kind of understand that everybody lives different, and that's okay. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's the beauty of life.
Yeah, I mean, because we're all together in this world. We
Yep.
should be really open and accepting of each other. And I know you've done Fremont Fridays in the past, but this Fremont Friday specifically was like a whole day just dedicated to like Mexican and Latin music.
Yeah.
And they really made it a culture,
They really
with
did.
the lowriders
They
and
really
just like
did.
all like, the Mediums Collective was there. And I just thought that was really cool that they dedicated a day for everybody to come listen and learn and fall in love with this music like I have.
Yeah.
Um, so alongside finding you
Mhm.
work with DJ Akis.
DJ Ekis, yeah. Shout out to
He
DJ
is
Ekis.
like awesome. I love
Yeah.
his music. How did you meet him?
The music, just through
Yeah.
music. I think he also kind of found me through like social media. It's like I'm active on social media. I was like,
You're very
I
active.
want my stuff to be seen, like whatever it takes. And I think that's kind of how like he messaged me once. It's like, hey, it's like I think he something along the lines was like, hey, did you make this song or whatever?
Mm.
And at the time, I think it was Yase. I don't know if you've heard that
Yes,
song. Yeah.
yeah.
So he liked that song a lot, and then he like it kind of became a friendship through that. And then next thing you know, I was performing on stage with him, and we had a cool end to 2023. Like we did a lot together. We were doing shows and stuff. So
Yeah, you were at the Nectar Lounge, which is
I was.
very, very hard to get into.
I was
I've
at the
noticed
Nectar.
that.
Yeah, I was at the Nectar Lounge. I did a few shows with them.
That's wild.
I did a few shows at the Nectar Lounge with DJ Prashant from Portland. I don't know if you know DJ
I
Prashant.
don't.
He does a lot of cool stuff. So he does a lot of like Bollywood, reggaeton, and Afro
Oh,
nights,
that's cool.
all kind of together.
That's really cool.
The very first time I did a show with him, I was kind of like blown away because the crowds, like I was like, how are you gonna get these crowds to kind of mesh? Music.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. Like
Mhm.
music speaks to people in a weird way, where it's like you don't need to I don't need to speak your language. Like this music is connecting us right now.
Yeah, music, like I said, knows no barriers.
Seriously.
And it's just so true. So let's get into would you say Txmless Dreams is your first album?
Yes.
Okay, your
100%.
first
Yeah,
album.
100%.
It dropped August 9th. I've heard a lot of pros and cons with like making albums versus making singles, and I feel like we're definitely in an era where singles are they're like a lot more common these days.
It's all about it. Yeah.
What are the pros and cons between creating an album versus releasing EPs and singles?
The pros and cons. So yeah, as far as an album, like in order to drop an album, I think you have to have expectations of what you're actually going to create. You have to have a vision for the project, and then two, budgeting, because
Yeah.
budget is everything. Everything in music is expensive.
Yeah.
So based on how much money you have, that's the quality of you're gonna pump out. Like I'm the kind of person that doesn't like any shortcuts. So this album took almost 2 years to put together.
Wow.
I was writing some of these songs like 2 years ago, and I knew I was like, I'm gonna save this one for an album, or this one's a single, or so forth.
Yeah.
And then with singles, I think you kind of touched on it. It's like nowadays, because we live in a world where like I want it now, like, and everybody's over a song in 1 week. that's what's propelled singles to always be launched every Friday. And
Yeah.
here's a new song, here's a new song. So in a way, it kind of sucks for like up and coming artists because we don't have the money that big record label artists have
Yeah.
to be able to pump out a song every Friday like they do. And that's kind of the people that don't know music and what it takes to make a song. They expect like, hey, well, you're not out, like you still got old music from 2021 or 2022. They don't understand like what it takes, like time, money, and everybody involved to make a good song. So I think that's the advantage and disadvantage. Is like if you're able to pump out a single every Friday, that's cool, or every 2 weeks, that's awesome. But most people are not.
Yeah.
So
That's very true.
So for me, like I think I went from after dropping the first EP that I did, Capítulos, I did 6 songs. That was kind of like my introduction to the music scene out here in Seattle. And then from then on, my whole vision with my brother, who helps me a lot with music, was just like, hey, for 2 years, let's just drop singles. Like, let's try to drop one every month. Let's try to drop one every 2 months, however we can, but singles. So it got to the point where I was just like, you know what? It's time for an album. Like, it's been almost two years. Like, I think I have a good project where I want to put together, because I got big plans with Txmless Dreams. Like, it just launched 2 weeks ago. I got huge plans with it.
It's a really good work of art, and you also have really great features. Coming back to Doble D, wow,
Doble
he is
D.
like insane, man. Oh my god, how do you pick your features?
I'm very selective and picky when it comes to my music, because ultimately the way I look at it is like, once a song is out, the song is out, and you can't correct it. Like, people are gonna, that's what it is, right? So you got to put the final product, and whatever it is or whatever you're gonna go with, that's the song. So I had a couple different artists on the song that he's on, actually, Atabajo.
Yes, yeah.
Where I was just like, and I kind of told him, I was like, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do with this song, but I want to hear you do this part of the song. I already had the song written. So I kind of just told him, I was like, hey, do the chorus and do a verse here and there. And I pitched it to like 4 different artists. They all gave me their version of it, and I went with the best artist. And I think Doble D just kind of hit it.
They like kind of auditioned almost.
Kind of in a way. And I think Doble D was just like the perfect combination of like my voice with his voice. It just meshed really well with like that vintage kind of reggaeton feel.
I agree. It definitely gave me kind of like Daddy Yankee vibes.
That was the whole intention behind that song.
I could definitely hear it, and that's why I just heard, and I was just like laying in my bed, just like, oh. I was like, let's go. This is so sick. It's so pro what you guys do. Like, and no disrespect to the local scene here, but there's sometimes when you can hear local artists and you can hear why they're local. If you get what I'm saying. Because there's a little bit of like an amateurness. There's a lot of beauty in it, but there is some amateurness, and that's okay. Everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just where they're at, and it's still great. But I feel like with you, I could like see this on like Billboard, honestly, or like turn on like a radio station and hear it. Like, it's just, it's so professional, the product that you and like your whole team put out. It's like, you should be really proud of yourself, because it's so like, it's so pro. Like, it like blew me away. I'm like, I haven't heard this like, you know, pro music from the scene probably ever, to be honest.
That's the whole goal behind what I'm creating. It's like I mentioned earlier, it's like, I don't take shortcuts. I don't want the shortcuts. Like, you really got to put in the work for it. It's like it takes working on lyrics, it takes working on your melodies, working on your singing, and then once as an artist, once you kind of got that foundation established, it's like, all right, now I got to work with this engineer to make quality music, because everything that I'm doing today is for a record label to like one day listen to my catalog and be like, this guy's ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to we can work on this song a little more, it needs to be polished. No, like, I want the best of the best qualities. Like, so I work with the best of the best engineer. I work with the best of the best mastering guys. Matthew Woke, who does all my masterings.
Oh yeah, I know him.
I work with him, and everything is just like, hey, once we're done, send it over to Matthew. I want the highest quality. It's like, because I want people to associate me with high quality music, not just like, it's okay, but he could have done something here. It's like, no, I don't want those excuses.
Like, I want it to be like,
I want it to sound with like guys like Fade and Bad Bunny's music. It's like, I think when I listen to the quality, it sounds just like their music.
Yeah.
So and that's the whole idea behind it. Is it's like, I'm making all my moves that I'm making right now is for the future.
That's
to
dope.
to build on like record labels. Like I said, somebody that comes is like, hey, I wanna help you with it. It's like we already have this product here. Let's move forward with it.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
So, kind of last thing about music, then we'll move on to the next topic. Between your first single and this current project you dropped, in what ways do you think you've grown?
Everything in every way
Yeah.
possible is like humans. Like we evolve. Like from like the very first single, even from like the songs that I was creating before I made my first single, it's like I'll listen to that and I giggle sometimes because it's like that's really like the work that you put in, right? Like
Yeah.
you go from zero to like where you're at now, and it's just night and day, honestly. And but that's kind of what you want. Like if you're not
Yes.
self-evaluating yourself, if you're not evolving as a person, as an artist, whatever it is, you're not growing. You're gonna be stuck. You're gonna be stuck. And I want and in order for me to grow is like I want people on my team that tell me, hey, you could do that better.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna get offended by it. I think a lot of
Mhm.
artists get offended by the whole
They
notion of
do.
like, hey, it sounds good, but it's not that good. I don't get offended by that no more. It's like I used to when I started making music, and I think that's because you're like still a little insecure
Yeah.
when you first
Yeah.
start, right? Like my brother and then some of the musicians that I work with is like, dude, it's cool, but I think you can say it different. I used to get offended by stuff like that. I was like, nah, that's good. The
Yeah.
song's good. But now it's just like everything that they tell you is just like to make it the best you could possibly create. So
Yeah, I think learning to drop the ego is really important.
it's
I
hard.
can relate to that with radio. Like when I first started radio in college, oh my God, I was listening to, when I was working at iHeart, I was like, I found like an old hard drive of all like my old air checks and tapes and stuff, and I sounded so bad. I was so bad, and I just like didn't really establish like my voice and cadence.
Yeah.
And but I'm so happy to have those things because it reminds me of how much I've grown just
Yep.
from just keep going at it, keep going in the studio, keep taking criticism right on the chin. Like I've gotten some pretty harsh criticism that
Yeah.
would like, and it has broken people where they're like, I don't want to come back here. Like I'm good as it is, but it's like, no, there's always ways you can grow.
Always.
And you just need to listen and not take it personally.
Right. No, I think that's what it is. You touched up on it. It's the ego. It's like we all have it. We all
Yeah.
have it. It's a matter of like how do you control your ego, whereas it's like, hey, these people they want me to do well.
Yeah.
So it's just like you gotta understand that. And some people, the people that don't understand that stuff, like they kinda especially with music, you just kinda see them kinda just stuck. Like the music always sounds the same.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like for me, it's just like no, I was like, I want people in my corner telling me, Rio, you could do that better.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want guys like that. I don't want yes guys around my corner and telling me it's like, hey, that's perfect. Like it sounds awesome. Don't change anything.
Yeah.
It's like there's always something you can tweak up.
That's very true. So, what I found interesting about you doing my research is in one of your interviews, you actually, and I feel like a lot of artists don't talk about this, talent is obviously everything, it's very important. But in this day and age, how to market yourself really makes or breaks you. And you hear that
Hmm.
with like, crap. The guy that's saying Old Town Road.
What's his
Crap.
name? Little
Lil
Nas X. Yeah,
Yeah,
Lil
like
Nas X,
he
yeah.
said, like he worked a lot on Twitter to create this persona and to get people to to follow him, and then he started releasing music.
Yeah.
And you talked about that, how like marketing is very important in this day
Yeah.
and age. How do you advise musicians to market themselves?
uh, being authentic. I think being you, and then ultimately also understanding. Again, I always try to lay out like goals and like what's the plan here. Like, what am I trying to create?
Mm-hmm.
Am I just trying to create a video just because I feel the sense of having to post, or am I trying to actually tell the audience a story here? So like I think my biggest advice would be like lay out what you're trying to create. For me, I try to have an agenda, like a 2-week plan.
Very good.
Like this is what I want to do, and within 2 weeks I want to have videos that say this, that do this, and show this for the audience. If you're just posting every single day, you're gonna get burnt out. You'll easily get burnt out because you'll start feeling like you're working. Cause I've been through it, like 3 years into this doing this music stuff. Like I've been through a lot of like different paths, and I've learned a lot of lessons. I've taken a lot of L's, but a lot of those L's, like I said, I try to like, okay, what do I learn from that?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like, I lost out on here or I lost money here. It's like, what's the lesson here? Like what did
Exactly.
I do wrong?
Yeah.
Because if you can figure out what you're doing wrong, then you can figure out how to way to better market your music.
Yeah.
And I think I try to stick with, for me at least, for my like music, I try to stick with everything relating to music strictly. Like I don't really try to show my personal life. Everything's all music
Yeah.
related because that's how I want to sell myself.
Yeah.
Like if you know me outside of music, awesome, but the whole idea is Rio, and let's market this music.
Yeah.
I can. There's times where I'm funny. I feel like 1 week I was like I want to make funny videos. 1 week I just want to make just music relating to my song or so forth. So
Yeah.
yeah, just I think just being organized and having a good plan of what you're trying to lay out is important.
Yeah. Kind of going back to like taking criticism for like making music, it's like
Yeah,
a lot of people are I mean, I was when I really started to like contemplate making content creation because I just was noticing some doors weren't opening for me and I
yeah,
just like, okay, well, I'm just going to create my own brand
yeah,
and it'll be there if anyone wants to hire me or like do anything with me. And I think eventually I just was like, I can't care. Like you
yeah.
can't care about what other people think
Yes.
of you. If your post doesn't do well, okay,
Yeah,
that's fine. At least you're trying. And like what ways, like you said,
yeah,
you can improve and kind of cater more to your audience. And I think kind of my advice to anyone that wants to learn how to market themselves, just be consistent, know kind of how you want to present yourself to the world and be okay with failing. I think being
yeah.
comfortable with failing is very important.
I think yeah. Just touching up on what you said
Yeah,
there is just
you had your points.
um yeah, I think as artists sometimes we get way too caught up with like, oh, this post didn't do well, or you think you make a cool video with a song and it's just like you didn't get that many likes like you thought you were.
Hmm.
It's not having any expectations when it comes to social media, because one, a lot of these platforms, they're already controlled. The algorithms are controlled, so they
Yeah.
want you to pay for your content to get pushed and be seen by everyone. So one, being organized, knowing what you're doing, and then having had not caring. I think that's the most important thing. Not caring about how well it does, or just in general, as it just post. If you think that's the best that you could have done for that post, post it.
Yeah, exactly. So, what do you hope people can take away from your music?
I want them to to take away the fact that I make music for everybody. I make love songs, I make happy songs, I make dance songs, and I think my music kind of pitches to everybody in a strange way,
That's
because
true.
because
Yeah.
I might be I might feel sad today. I'll make a sad song. I might feel happy. Let me make a happy song. I want to make a dance song. Let me make a dance song. So I don't ever limit myself in terms of like I'm only supposed to make sad songs or love
Hmm.
songs. Like I make like depending on how I feel, that's the song you're gonna get.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I hear that in your music too. Obviously, with the very limited Spanish I have, but even just sound wise, I mean, it's like a little bit of something for everybody. And I think
Yeah,
that's really cool that you're able to do that, but also like you're comfortable with dabbling in different things.
right.
I think that's really cool. And I think sometimes that takes a lot of courage.
It's definitely hard. I think at this point now, though, in my music career, I think I kind of figured out where I want to stay. It's
Yeah.
like like you mentioned earlier, like you've heard a lot of like trap music that I make, a lot of like different genres. Now I've kind of narrowed it to like, all right, I know my sound and I know where I'm trying to stick with moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think reggaeton for me is my bread and butter. Like
Hmm.
I'll nibble with like cumbias and stuff like that from time to time because that's just in me.
Yeah.
But I think as far as like my style of music, it's really just urban Latin moving forward.
Yeah. It's you're it's really good. I mean, it definitely seems like you've kind of honed in, especially with this like project, Timeless Dreams. I feel like you really honed in on who you are and who you want to present yourself as to the world.
Right.
And that's really cool. So what's next for you? What's next for Rio? Now your album's out.
Yeah, absolutely. So next for Rio is things like this, like just getting in front of the cameras, doing more interviews, working with a PR agency to really push my product, because I really believe in Timeless Dreams. I think we spend a lot of time and just blood, sweat, and tears into that studio, just making sure every song was laid down correctly. So I want to invest in this project. So moving forward
Mhm.
is just like, how do I get in more eyes? Like, how do I capture more audience? Uh, do I need to do more shows? So I'm actually strategizing with all those things and just trying to figure out like what's our plan, but definitely more exposure. That's where we're headed.
Definitely. Do you have like any shows kind of coming up that you know
Uh,
of?
so interesting you asked me that because I was working on the album for so long, I kind of like got away from like doing shows. So Fremont
Yeah.
kind of came out of nowhere. I was like, I'm just gonna focus on the album, making sure everything's right.
Yeah.
But definitely, like I'm working on a show for October. It's gonna be a big show.
Oh, that'll be sick.
Yeah,
I think it's always good to like plan the big shows, you
Yeah.
know, instead of doing little shows
yeah,
all over the
yeah,
place, because it makes it obviously like people are going to want to come and see you more because if you don't perform as much, they're like, this is like my chance to see them. And then also it's like you just are able to have more time to make it even more special and more like different than other people
And
and
then-
like what they're doing.
and that's what it is. I think because the album just kind of came out too, I was like, the next show is gonna be the album basically. Like, so I'm gonna be
Yeah.
it's gonna be my first time performing all the songs on the album. I want to make sure myself and my musicians are in sync, and I just want to give a spectacular show to the next one that's coming up. I want people to hear the songs, or if they already heard the album, I want them to hear them live and be like, man, that sounded way better.
That's dope.
That's-
I'm
that's-
excited.
yeah.
I'm definitely. I will go to that.
Yeah, you
one.
gotta
I
get
won't
out
get
there. You
sick.
gotta
Well,
get
I
out
hope
there.
I can't plan it, but I won't get sick. I will put it in my calendar because I
Sweet.
definitely want to go and
Okay.
like just meet everybody too.
Dope.
So let's get into something fun. We're getting kind of towards the end of the show. I
Okay.
do this game with everybody on here. It's called Song Association. I don't know if that's like the right name for it, but that's
Okay.
just what I call.
Okay.
So pretty much I have like 5 different vibes here, and pretty much I'll say like a vibe, and you
Okay.
think from your songs that you have released, Riio,
Okay.
what song would fit that vibe. So
Okay.
people are like, oh, if I want to feel this way, I'll pull this up on Riio.
Okay. Dope. I like it.
All right, first one, Fiesta.
Hasta abajo.
Yes, it's a good song. Sexy Time. You're getting ready to rizz up a woman.
I got too many of those. I got too many of those songs. Diles, La Shorty, that's on Txmless Dreams. But you can go to my catalog, but those are the 2 newest I would top of mind right now.
Yeah. You're really sad and you need something to pick you up.
Pasarla chido.
Fuck that bitch. Forget her.
Uh,
Bye.
what,
It's okay. You can.
I got Ya Sé. I would go with Ya Sé.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. And then last one, getting ready to work out. I will say I have worked out to like a lot of your songs. at the
Okay.
gym. I'm on the stair stepper and I'm like, it just gets
Okay.
going.
Okay.
But what would you recommend?
Suéltate, La Babies,
That's-
Diva.
yeah.
Diva. I mean, I got a ton of them, especially on the new album. I got a lot of them. Matabajo. You could do La Shorty. You could do what's another good? Have you heard Chingando?
I have.
Chingando, like that's to me out of the entire album, that's my favorite one because we spent so much time making that song.
Really?
Like from like deconstructing the beat, from like all those sound effects, all those weird voices. I made all those weird voices. Like I was like altering
that
my
was
voice
you.
and everything. Yeah.
Okay, that's really that's so cool.
So that song took a long time. So that's for me. That's like when I heard that song for the first time when it finally got done, I almost cried because I was like, I changed my voice and everything. I wanted to sound like an alien here. I wanted to sound like
That's so
like
cool.
a sportscaster, and just it was fun to make that song.
Is it fun to kind of dabble in those kind of different characters?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the evolution of an artist too. It's just like I listen to a lot of Kendrick. So
I
it's
was
like
just
I'm
thinking
inspired.
that.
I get inspired by a lot of Kendrick Lamar, and a lot of
Yeah.
that song was a lot of inspiration from Kendrick Lamar. How he like
Wow.
does different voices, and it's still
Yeah.
him. You know.
Yeah, I was thinking of him too. He's always the first one I think of
Yeah.
too. But even other artists have done that too. I think like Andre 3000
Andre does
has
that
done
too.
stuff like that, and it's just really cool that they are so comfortable becoming a character, and it just adds so much more flavor to the
Yeah.
song that I think people don't realize.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're getting to the end of the show. Where can the people find you? Look at that camera right there and let them know like your social medias.
So
all
you
that.
you guys can find me anywhere. All my social medias are all the same. It's I go by Yo Soy Riio, which is I am Riio. Find me on Spotify, Apple Music, all the digital platforms. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, TikTok. I'm a character on TikTok, so if you guys want to check out my TikTok, I do the funniest things, and I think I'm just more comfortable being relatable on TikTok. I feel like Instagram's a little more like you gotta have kind of like a
People are mean on there.
I don't know what it is about Instagram. It's just like, but TikTok, I feel like I can say whatever and do whatever, and people love it. Like so.
Yeah, people love out of pocket stuff on there. At least I do. I mean, my For You page is like I would not want anyone to see it because it's so insane. I'm not even gonna talk about it. Is there anyone that you want to shout out before we close the show out?
I want to shout out my family. I want to shout out my musicians who've helped me these past 3 years. I just, like get my music heard and just being on stage with them. It's been a blessing. It's been an honor to be with you guys. Shout out to Matthew Woke, like I said earlier, my mastering guy. Shout out to Kyle, Cold Clock Productions, the best engineer in the Pacific Northwest, and then just everybody in my circle, everybody that helps me create music, and everybody who's like filming me, everybody who's taking pictures. I appreciate you guys.
That's awesome. Also, just one little thing, he brought me a really nice gift. And this is some new merch.
So that's new merch that's gonna be coming out. She's actually the first one who just got the shirt. So it's like I'm getting ready to launch T-shirts. Eventually we're gonna do some hats too, but definitely we're gonna start off with the T-shirts.
The hats would be sick.
Yeah.
Are you doing like snapbacks and
stuff? Yeah, snapbacks and all that. Yep.
That's so sick. All right, well, Riio, thank you so much for coming, and this was so fun to talk to you and finally meet you and get to talk about music with you. It's always like a pleasure.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you so much. That 206 Sound. We'll see you next time.